The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Its crystal walls showed the stars beyond, making visitors feel like they floated in space itself. Today, like every day for the past 3,000 years, the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered to decide the fate of countless worlds. President Elena Vasquez walked through the massive doors, her small human delegation behind her. Their footsteps echoed in the vast space. Around them, the other council members took their places. The Thalorians moved like living glass, their bodies catching and reflecting light in beautiful patterns. Their thoughts connected through crystal networks that sparkled with shared ideas. When one Thalorian spoke, all of them knew the words instantly. The Krex delegation marched in perfect formation. Their dark armor gleamed under the hall's lights. Each soldier moved exactly like the others, because the Krex shared one mind across their entire species. Their Queen Prime sat on a throne made of metal from 1,000 conquered worlds. Her eyes glowed red as she watched the humans with cold interest. In the highest seat sat the Vortha Collective. These ancient beings had lived for millions of years. Their wrinkled skin looked like old leather, and their eyes held the weight of countless ages. They had been here when the galaxy was young. They had seen species rise and fall like waves on a beach. Elena took her seat in the human section. It was the smallest area in the hall, with only 12 chairs. The humans had been council members for 50 years now, but everyone still treated them like children who had wandered into an adult conversation. "The council will come to order," announced Speaker Zethkar, a Thalorian whose crystal body pulsed with official authority. "Today we discuss trade route disputes between the Mogani sector and the Belarius system." Elena listened as the great powers debated. The Thalorians spoke in musical tones about fair distribution of resources. The Krex Queen Prime demanded that her fleets receive safe passage through all systems. The Vortha Collective offered wisdom from similar disputes they had seen eons ago. When it came time for the human position, Elena stood slowly. The hall fell quiet. Some species still found it strange to see such a small, soft creature speak among giants. "Earth supports the Belarius proposal," she said simply. "Trade should benefit everyone, not just the strongest." Several council members made sounds that might have been laughter. The Thalorians' crystals dimmed with what Elena had learned meant amusement. Even the ancient Vorthic seemed to find her words childish. Ambassador Crix of the Beltaran Trade Union leaned forward in his massive chair. His rock-like skin creaked as he moved. "With respect, President Vasquez, humanity has been in space for barely 100 years. Perhaps you should listen more and speak less." Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice calm. Sometimes a fresh view helps solve old problems. "Fresh views," muttered Queen Prime Vasek of the Krex. Her voice carried the weight of her entire species' thoughts. Human emotions make poor foundations for galactic policy. The debate continued without human input. Elena watched as the great powers carved up trade routes like pieces of meat. The smaller species got scraps, if anything. This was how the galaxy had always worked. The strong took what they wanted. The weak accepted what they were given. After the session, Elena walked the council's crystal corridors with her aide, Marcus Chun. The walls around them showed images of great battles, famous treaties, and the rise of galactic civilization. Humans appeared in none of these pictures. "They're planning something," Marcus said quietly. "Did you see how the Vorthic kept looking at each other?" Elena had noticed. The ancient beings rarely showed emotion, but today they seemed nervous. "What kind of planning?" "The kind that happens behind closed doors," Marcus replied. "My contacts in the service sectors are hearing whispers. Secret meetings. Old protocols being discussed." They passed a group of Thalorian technicians working on a broken communication array. The crystal beings touched the device with delicate fingers, but their efforts only made it spark and smoke. One of them noticed the humans watching. "Excuse me," the Thylorian called in its musical voice. "Are there any human engineers available? This device uses hybrid technology that our people struggle with." Elena smiled. "I'll send someone over." This happened every day. Human engineers fixed Thylorian crystal networks when they broke down. Human mechanics kept Krek's war machines running smoothly. Human doctors treated patients from dozens of different species. Because human medicine focused on understanding how different bodies worked rather than following rigid procedures, the galaxy's great powers might look down on humanity. But they needed human hands to keep their civilization running. That evening, Elena sat in her quarters reviewing reports from human colonies across the galaxy. Humans had spread farther and faster than any species in Council history. They lived on ice planets with the Norvani, worked in the deep mines of Kethera, and helped build cities in the clouds of Gas Giant. For Million Dot, what made humans special was not their technology or their strength. It was their ability to make friends. Other species built alliances based on power or shared interests. Humans built friendships based on understanding and trust. A human engineer working on a Thylorian ship would learn Thylorian music and share human coffee with the crew. A human doctor treating Belterran patients would study their stone-like biology until she could help them better than their own healers. Elena's door chimed. Marcus entered with a worried expression. "The Vorthic Elder Prime has called a closed session for next week," he said. "Ancient protocols only. The kind of meeting that hasn't happened in 1,000 years. Did your contacts hear what it's about?" Marcus hesitated. Population assessment. Something called the pruning protocol. Elena felt cold wash over her. She had never heard of any pruning protocol, but the name itself made her stomach turn. "Find out everything you can about this protocol." "I'm trying, but the records are sealed under Elder authority. Whatever this is about, it's bigger than trade disputes or border arguments." After Marcus left, Elena stood at her window looking out at the stars. Somewhere among those lights was Earth, humanity's small blue home. Humans had come so far in such a short time. They had built a place for themselves among the stars through hard work and friendship. But now she wondered if the galaxy's ancient powers saw that growth as something to celebrate or something to fear. In the deepest chambers of the Council complex, beings older than human civilization gathered around a table that had seen the birth and death of 100 species. They spoke in voices that carried the weight of ages about a problem that grew larger every day. The humans were spreading too fast, learning too quickly, and making too many friends. If this continued, they might upset the careful balance that had kept the galaxy stable for 3,000 years. It was time for the pruning protocol to be used once again. 6 months had passed since the closed session of the Vorthic Collective. Elena Vasquez stood in the engine room of the Thylorian flagship Crystal Song, watching human engineers work alongside their alien hosts. The massive ship's crystal heart pulsed with energy that flowed through living pathways grown over centuries. The harmonic frequency was off by 0.03%, explained Chief Engineer Sarah Kim to the ship's Thylorian captain. Not enough to cause immediate failure, but over time it would have cracked your primary crystal matrix. Captain Velthara's crystalline form shimmered with gratitude. Our own engineers missed this completely. How did you detect such a small variance? Sarah smiled and patted the crystal wall gently. We listen differently. Your people hear the song of the crystals, but we feel their vibrations. Sometimes you need both to catch problems. Elena watched this exchange with pride. This was happening throughout the galaxy. Human engineers didn't just fix things. They understood them. They spent time learning how each species' technology worked. then found ways to make it work better. In the Krex shipyards of Terminus Station, human mechanics crawled through the tight spaces of hive ships that even the insect-like Krex found difficult to access. The humans were smaller, more flexible, and willing to work in cramped conditions that would drive other species crazy. Worker Prime called Jenny Martinez to the Krex overseer. The power coupling in Junction 7 needs replacing. I found stress fractures that could fail during battle. Worker Prime Zekthos clicked his mandibles, and what Elena had learned was approval. Human Martinez sees flaws that escape our own inspection drones. How is this possible? Jenny wiped grease from her hands on her coveralls. Our eyes evolve differently. We see patterns that stand out to us but might be normal to you. Plus, we're used to working with equipment that breaks down a lot. The Krex found this answer amusing. Their technology rarely failed because everything was built to hive mind specifications and maintained by creatures who shared perfect communication. But having humans around meant their machines worked even better than before. Elena visited human settlements across the galaxy during those months. On the ice world of Kelleran, humans worked alongside the native Norvani to build thermal plants that kept both species warm. The Norvani were tall, thin beings covered in white fur who communicated through temperature changes in their breath. Dr. Michael Torres had spent 3 years learning to read Norvani thermal speech. Now he could diagnose their illnesses better than most Norvani healers. They get a condition similar to our pneumonia, he explained to Elena as they walked through the medical center. But their treatment methods only worked for Norvani who live near volcanic areas. I adapted it for the ones who live in the deep ice. A young Norvani approached them, her breath creating complex patterns of warm and cool air. Dr. Torres nodded and responded with his own thermal words. Crude but understandable. She's thanking you for saving her mother last winter. He translated for Elena. This was the pattern everywhere. Humans didn't just live alongside other species. They studied them, understood them, and found ways to help them. In return, other species began to see humans not as primitive newcomers, but as valuable partners. Elena found herself invited to more private meetings with other ambassadors. Ambassador Krix of the Belterans, who had once told her to listen more and speak less, now sought her advice on trade disputes. Your people have a gift for seeing all sides of a problem, the rock like being rumbled over dinner. His people ate by absorbing minerals, but he had learned to appreciate the smell of human coffee. The Mallory system conflict, how would humans approach it? Elena sipped her coffee thoughtfully. We'd probably start by asking what each side really needs, not what they say they want. Usually, there's a way to give everyone their real needs without anyone losing face. Krix's stone features shifted, and what Elena had learned was a smile. Practical wisdom. My people respect this. Even the proud Krex began to value human perspectives. Queen Prime Vasak requested Elena's presence at strategy meetings, claiming that human emotional responses helped her understand how other species might react to Krex military actions. Your people think differently, the Queen Prime explained after one particularly productive session. Krex minds think as one. We see efficiency and logic, but you see connections and feelings. Together, we make better decisions. But it was with the Thylorians that humans formed the strongest bonds. The crystal beings were fascinated by human art, music, and stories. They had perfect memory and shared thoughts, but they struggled with individual creativity. Humans, with their messy emotions and personal experiences, created art that moved the Thylorians deeply. Elena attended a concert where a human musician, David Park, played guitar, while Thylorian crystals provided harmonic accompaniment. The music that emerged was unlike anything either species could create alone. Half the Thylorian audience wept tears that looked like liquid diamonds. After the performance, Speaker Zefkar approached Elena. We have shared minds, but individual music seems impossible for us. Your musician David has taught 3 of our young ones to compose personal songs. They create beauty we never imagined possible. These friendships worried the ancient powers of the galaxy. In the highest chambers of the Vorthek Collective, beings who had lived since the galaxy was young gathered in emergency session. Elder Prime Kothver spoke in a voice like distant thunder. The humans spread through our space like wildfire. Every day they make new allies, learn new secrets, integrate deeper into our civilization. Elder Secondary Mithril pulsed with concern. Their population grows faster than any species in recorded history. Their colonies now number in the thousands. Their influence touches every major system. But they are helpful, offered Elder Third Valsan. Our younger members report improved efficiency wherever humans work. Perhaps their growth benefits the galaxy. Elder Prime Kothver's ancient eyes glowed with cold light. A cancer is also growth child. The question is not whether they help today, but whether they will threaten stability tomorrow. The elders accessed databases that held 3 million years of galactic history. Species after species had risen quickly, grown powerful, then disrupted the careful balance that kept civilization stable. Each time the great powers had been forced to act. The pruning protocol existed for exactly this situation. Their technological advancement accelerates beyond all projections. Elder Secondary Mithril reported. They absorb knowledge from every species they encounter. In 50 years, they have learned what took us millennia to develop. And their emotional bonds, added Elder Third Velsan. They do not merely form alliances of convenience. They create genuine friendships across species lines. This makes them unpredictable. Elder Prime Kothver considered the data. Humans were different from previous threats. They did not conquer or dominate. They integrated and improved. But that might make them more dangerous, not less. The pruning protocol must be prepared, he decided. If the humans continue their current growth rate, they will command too much influence to control within another generation. Meanwhile, Elena attended a ceremony on New Geneva Station where humans and Thylorians together activated a new trading hub. The station would serve dozens of species and coordinate commerce across 3 sectors. Human. Administrator Lisa Chang shook hands with Thylorian Portmaster Keelvan. Their species had different concepts of ownership and property, but together they had designed a system that worked for everyone. To new friendships, Lisa said, raising a cup of coffee. To shared prosperity, Keelvan replied, his crystal form glowing with happiness. Elena watched the celebration and felt hope for the future. Humans had found their place in the galaxy, not through conquest or superior technology, but through understanding and cooperation. They were building something beautiful. She had no idea that in the ancient halls of power, beings older than her species were planning to destroy it all. The vote had been scheduled. The pruning protocol would be activated within the year. Humanity's time in the galaxy was about to come to an end. Elena Vasquez felt something wrong the moment she entered the council chambers. The normal chatter between delegations was missing. Instead, representatives sat in unusual silence, avoiding eye contact with each other, and especially with the humans. Marcus Chun leaned close to Elena's ear. The agenda was changed this morning. Something called Resolution 2847 Omega. My contacts have never heard of it. Elena studied the faces around the Great Hall. Speaker Zethkar's crystal form seemed dimmer than usual. Queen Prime Vasek of the Krek sat perfectly still, her red eyes fixed on some distant point. Most telling of all, the Vorthek Collective filled every seat in their section. All 12 elder minds present for the first time in decades. The council will come to order, Speaker Zethkar announced, his musical voice lacking its usual warmth. Today, We consider Resolution 2847 Omega under the ancient protocols. Elena frowned. She had studied council procedures extensively, but the ancient protocols were rarely used. They dated back to the very founding of galactic civilization, written in archaic language that most species barely understood. Elder Prime Kothfer rose from his high seat, his ancient form moving slowly but with terrible purpose. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 3 million years of history. The ancient protocols grant the founding species authority to address threats to galactic stability. We invoke the right of preservation, established when this council first brought order to chaos. What kind of threat? Elena asked, standing from her seat, the Elder Prime's eyes fixed on her with cold intelligence. Species that grow beyond the carrying capacity of stable civilization. Populations that expand too rapidly. Cultures that disrupt established patterns of cooperation. Elena felt ice form in her stomach. This was about humanity. She looked around the chamber, seeking all eyes among the friends humanity had made over the past months. But Captain Velthara of the Thalorians stared at the floor. Ambassador Crix of the Belterans examined his stone hands. Even Worker Prime Zekthos of the Krex avoided her gaze. We propose Resolution 2847 Omega, Elder Prime Kothfer continued. The classification of humanity as a destabilizing influence requiring corrective measures under Section 7 of the Ancient Protocols. The words meant nothing to Elena, but the tone made their meaning clear. Marcus grabbed her arm, his face pale with understanding. They're voting to eliminate us, he whispered. All in favor? Speaker Zethkar called, his voice hollow. Every founding species raised their approval. Thylorian crystals flashed in perfect unison. Craig's mandibles clicked in synchronized agreement. The massive forms of the Belterans shifted their weight forward, and the Vorthak collective pulsed with ancient certainty. Resolution 2847 Omega is approved, Speaker Zethkar announced. Implementation to begin within 7 standard days. Elena shot to her feet. What does that mean? What are you planning to do? But the session was already ending. Delegates filed out in unusual haste, still avoiding human eyes. Only Elder Prime Kothfer remained, his ancient gaze studying Elena with something that might have been regret. You are not evil people, he said quietly. But your species threatens the balance we have maintained for millennia. Better a small tragedy now than galactic chaos later. 3 days passed in tense preparation. Elena sent urgent messages to human colonies across the galaxy, warning them to be ready for anything. Marcus worked around the clock, trying to decode the ancient protocols and understand what corrective measures might involve. The answer came at 0347. Hours on the 4th day. Admiral Sarah Kim, now commanding Earth's defense grid, detected the Krex fleet first. 37 heavy cruisers dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Their formation was perfect, their weapons powered but not aimed. This is Admiral Kim of Earth Defense Command. Sarah broadcast on all frequencies. Krex fleet, you are approaching human space without authorization. State your intentions. The response came from Fleet Prime Vexter. A Krex commander Elena had met at diplomatic functions. His voice carried the cold certainty of the hive mind. Earth Defense Command, this is Fleet Prime Vexter conducting navigation training exercises. We experienced a computational error that brought us off course. We will correct our position and depart your system shortly. Sarah wasn't convinced, but Krex fleets had crossed human space before during their war games. The treaty allowed such passages with proper notification, though this fleet had given none. Fleet Prime Vexter, you're required to submit to scan protocols before proceeding through our system. Please reduce speed and prepare for inspection. The Krex response was immediate and devastating. Earth Defense Command, We interpret your scanning attempt as an act of aggression against the Krex Empire. We respond with appropriate defensive measures. The first salvo destroyed Earth's outer defense platforms before Sarah could even process what was happening. Antimatter warheads, designed to crack battle stations, vaporized installations that have been built to protect against pirates and raiders, not military fleets. All units, all units. Sarah shouted into her communicator. This is not a drill. Krex fleet is attacking. Repeat, we are under attack. The slaughter lasted 18 minutes. Earth's defenses had been designed by humans who thought in terms of reasonable threats from reasonable beings. The Krex fleet had been designed by a hive mind that calculated perfect efficiency in destruction. Luna Colony 7 died first. 200,000 civilians lived in a massive habitat that orbited Earth's moon, including children, elderly, and people from dozens of different species who had come to live among humans. The Krex antimatter torpedoes left nothing but expanding gas and debris. Orbital Station Harmony followed. Then New Armstrong Base. Then the shipyards above. Mars, where human engineers had been building vessels to serve the galactic community. When the Krex fleet finally withdrew, 3 million humans were dead. Earth's defenses were gone. And the galaxy's newest species had learned a terrible lesson about the cost of growing too fast. The emergency council session convened 6 hours later. Elena sat in her chair like a woman carved from stone. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice didn't waver. But her eyes held something that made other delegates uncomfortable to look at directly. Fleet Prime. Vexter stood at the center of the chamber, his dark armor reflecting the crystal lights. His report was precise and emotionless. The Krex fleet encountered navigational difficulties during routine exercises. Human scanning attempts triggered our defensive protocols. Regrettably, human installations were damaged before communications could be established. The Krex Empire expresses sympathy for this unfortunate misunderstanding. Queen Prime Vasek added her official position. The Krex Empire offers standard reparations under Article 12 of the Mutual Defense Treaty. Financial compensation will be provided for damaged installations. Elena listened to this performance with perfect calm. Around the chamber, other delegates nodded as if this explanation made sense. A navigational error. A misunderstanding. Defensive protocols. The same words used whenever a stronger power destroyed something belonging to the weak. Speaker. Zethkar's crystal form pulsed with official sympathy. The Council expresses its condolences for this tragic accident. We call upon all species to improve communication protocols to prevent such misunderstandings in the future. Tragic accident, Elena repeated quietly. Yes, Speaker Zethkar said. Most regrettable. But these incidents can occur when species misinterpret each other's actions. Elena stood slowly. The chamber fell silent, watching her with the nervous attention usually reserved for dangerous predators. 3 million humans are dead, she said in a voice that carried clearly through the vast space. Including children, including elderly, including visitors from other worlds who trusted human protection. War is always tragic, rumbled Ambassador Krix of the Belterans. But the galaxy cannot dwell on past sorrows. Past sorrows, Elena nodded. Yes, I suppose that's what this becomes now. Just another line in the history books. Another species that learned its place. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings who had once called themselves friends of humanity. None of them looked back. I understand now, she said. This was never about navigation errors or defensive protocols. This was about the pruning protocol. About keeping species in their proper place. Elder Prime Koth first spoke from his high seat. These are difficult concepts for younger species to understand. The galaxy requires order. Some sacrifices are necessary to maintain stability. Elena smiled, and somehow that smile was more frightening than any shout of rage would have been. Sacrifices, she agreed. Yes, we're learning about sacrifices. She gathered her materials with careful precision. Every movement controlled and deliberate. The human delegation will be returning to Earth to attend to our dead, she announced. We thank the Council for its thoughts and prayers. As Elena walked toward the exit, every species in the chamber watched her go. They had accomplished their goal. Humanity had been reminded of its place in the galactic order. The message had been sent and received, but something about the way Elena carried herself made several delegates uneasy. She moved like someone who had learned an important lesson, but not necessarily the lesson they had intended to teach. The pruning protocol was complete. The crisis was overdone, or so they believed. Elena Vasquez stood in her private quarters aboard the transport ship heading back to Earth. The casualty reports covered her desk like scattered leaves. Each page held names, ages, occupations. Maria Santos, age 7, killed when Luna Colony 7 was destroyed. Dr. Robert Kim, 73 years old, lost when Orbital Station Harmony vaporized. Captain Jennifer Walsh, 31, married with 2 children, died defending the Mars shipyards. Among the dead were Elena's own daughter, Lisa, and her family. They had been visiting Luna 7 for Lisa's daughter's birthday party when the Krex fleet attacked. 5 generations of Elena's family, gone in 18 minutes of defensive measures. Elena set down the reports and picked up her secure communicator. Her fingers moved steadily as she began making calls across the galaxy. The conversations were always brief, always the same. Chief Engineer Kim, this is President Vasquez. Madam President, I heard about the attack. I'm so sorry for your losses. Thank you, Sarah. Are you somewhere private? Yes, ma'am. I'm in my quarters on the Thalorian flagship. They attacked our home, Sarah. A long pause. Then, understood, Madam President. I'll be on the next transport to Earth. No, stay where you are for now. But prepare for my signal. Elena made 47 calls that first day. To Chief Medical Officer Torres on the ice world of Kelleran. To Mining Supervisor Chun in the asteroid belts of Rigel. To Agricultural Specialist Martinez on the farming colonies of New Terra. To every human working in every corner of galactic space. The response was immediate and terrifying in its coordination. On the Thalorian flagship Crystal Song, Chief Engineer Sarah Kim walked into the main engineering bay and began shutting down systems. When Captain Velthara asked what she was doing, Sarah explained calmly that she was downloading the complete technical specifications of Thalorian crystal technology to send to Earth. But that information is classified, Captain Velthara protested, her crystalline form flashing with alarm. Yes, Sarah agreed, continuing to copy files. But my family is dead, and your people voted to kill them. So I'm taking what I need and going home. Captain Velthara tried to stop her, but discovered that Sarah had locked out the ship's security systems using her administrative access. The Thalarian crew watched helplessly as their most trusted human engineers systematically stole their most advanced technology. The same scene played out across the galaxy. On Krex battle stations, human mechanics walking away from their posts after downloading construction blueprints. In Beltaran mining facilities, human supervisors abandoning their equipment while transmitting geological surveys to Earth. On Vorthek research stations, human scientists departing with copies of ancient databases. The aliens tried to stop them, but discovered a problem they had never considered. Humans had been integrated so deeply into galactic society that removing them caused immediate system failures. When Sarah Kim left the Crystal Song, the ship's engines began developing harmonic instabilities that the Thalorian crew couldn't fix. When human mechanics abandoned Krek stations, automated systems started malfunctioning in ways that required human intuition to resolve. Within 72 hours, the exodus was complete. Humans throughout the galaxy were packing up and heading home, taking with them intimate knowledge of every major technology, installation, and weakness in Council Space. Admiral Rebecca Chun of the Human Fleet received the returning humans at staging areas throughout Earth's solar system. Each transport brought not just people, but information. Technical manuals, security codes, structural analyses, personnel records. The humans hadn't just worked in alien facilities. They had studied them, understood them, and now remembered everything. "How bad is it?" Admiral Chun asked Dr. Michael Torres, who had returned from Norvani space with detailed medical files on every major species. "Worse than they know," Torres replied, setting down a datapad thick with intelligence. "The Thalorians' crystal ships are beautiful, but they have a fatal flaw. If you introduce the right harmonic frequency into their matrix cores, the entire crystal network shatters. Sarah Kim discovered it months ago, but never mentioned it because she thought we were friends." Engineering supervisor Jenny Martinez spread blueprints across a table. "The Krek's hive ships look intimidating, but they're designed around perfect coordination. If you disrupt their communication networks with the right signal pattern, they become sitting targets. I helped design their communication arrays, so I know exactly which frequencies to jam." Mining specialist Carlos Rodriguez pulled up geological surveys on his tablet. "The Beltaran home system depends on 3 main asteroid mining operations for their industrial base. I've been running those operations for 2 years. I know which support structures are load-bearing and which ones aren't." Admiral Chun stared at the mountain of intelligence accumulating in her headquarters. "They trusted us with all this?" "They didn't think it mattered," Jenny replied. "We were just the mechanics. The help. Nobody worries about what the janitor overhears." President Elena Vasquez arrived at fleet headquarters 48 hours after the last transport docked. She moved through the corridors with the same calm precision she had shown in the council chambers. Staff officers stepped aside as she passed, recognizing something dangerous in her quiet composure. "Status report," she requested as she entered the main briefing room. Admiral Chun activated the holographic display. "All human personnel have been extracted from Council space. We've gained complete technical specifications for major alien technologies. Our people are analyzing defensive capabilities and identifying vulnerabilities." "Vulnerabilities," Elena repeated. "Show me." The next several hours revealed the scope of humanity's inadvertent intelligence operation. For 50 years, humans had been the galaxy's fixers, engineers, and troubleshooters. They had crawled through every major installation, repaired every critical system, and learned the inner workings of galactic civilization. Dr. Torres explained alien biology with the precision of someone who had treated thousands of patients. Thalorians are silicon-based, which makes them vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies. Kreks have distributed nervous systems that can be disrupted with targeted sonic weapons. Beltarans are essentially living rocks, but they depend on specific mineral supplements that we control the supply of. Chief Engineer Kim displayed structural analyses of alien space stations. "I've personally worked on the life support systems for every major Thalorian installation. I know which stations have redundant backups and which ones don't. If you cut power to the right distribution nodes, whole sectors go dark." Communications Specialist Park showed network diagrams that looked like spiderwebs. "The Kreks communicate through quantum entangled transmitters that I helped calibrate. If you know the right frequency modulations, you can inject false signals into their hive mind network. Make them think they're receiving orders that aren't real." Elena absorbed this information without emotion. The galaxy's great powers had made a critical error. They had treated humans as useful servants rather than potential threats. In their arrogance, they had allowed humanity to become indispensable while learning everything about their weaknesses. What about our own capabilities? Elena asked. Admiral Chun switched to another display. Our military is smaller than theirs, but we've been building ships with hybrid technologies. Thalorian crystal matrices for power, Krex hive communication for coordination, Beltaran armor plating for protection. Our newest vessels combine the best features of every major species, because they helped us design them, Elena realized. Exactly. Captain Velthara personally assisted with our crystal power systems. Queen Prime Vasak provided technical advisors for our communication arrays. They gave us access to everything we needed to understand their capabilities. Elena walked to the central display, studying the tactical readouts. Humanity was outnumbered and outgunned, but they possessed something their enemies lacked: complete knowledge of how everything worked. They made a mistake, she said quietly. They assumed we would accept our place and move on. They thought killing our people would teach us humility. She turned to address the room full of officers and specialists. Instead, they taught us something else. They taught us that friendship means nothing to them, that our trust was wasted, that our children's lives don't matter. Elena's voice remained calm, but every person in the room could feel the ice-cold fury beneath her words. They want to prune us, she continued. Cut us down before we grow too large. But they forgot that we've been growing among them for 50 years. Our roots run deep into their civilization now. Admiral Chun understood. What are your orders, Madam President? Elena looked around the room at the faces of people who had lost friends, colleagues, and family members to the Krex attack. Engineers who had been betrayed by the aliens they had helped. Doctors who had saved alien lives only to watch humans die. Scientists who had shared their knowledge with species that voted to destroy them. Send a message to all human colonies and installations, Elena ordered. Full recall. Every human in Council space is to return to Earth immediately. All of them? Admiral Chun asked. That's nearly 50 million people. All of them, Elena confirmed. And while they're traveling, they should make sure their alien friends understand exactly what they're losing. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. For the first time in 3,000 years, the great powers of the galaxy were facing problems they couldn't solve. Speaker. Sethkar's crystal form flickered with distress as he read reports flooding in from across Council space. The Thalorian fleet reports cascade failures in 17 major vessels. The Crystal Song has lost main power and is drifting. The Harmony of Ages suffered complete crystal matrix collapse and had to be evacuated. Queen Prime Vasak of the Krex stood rigid with barely contained fury. 43 of our installations have experienced critical system failures. Asteroid Base Omega's life support failed completely. Deep Space Station 7 lost all communication networks. Our maintenance drones cannot identify the problems. Ambassador Krix of the Belterans rumbled like an avalanche. Our mining operations have ceased. Equipment failures in every major facility. Without human supervisors, our workers cannot operate the automated systems. Production has dropped by 80%. Elder Prime Kothver of the Vorthok Collective observed the chaos with ancient eyes that had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. But even his vast experience had not prepared him for this. The humans had not responded with weapons or armies. Instead, they had simply left, and their absence was destroying everything they had once maintained. How many humans remain in Council space? Elder Prime Kothver asked. Speaker Zefkar consulted his reports. Our latest count shows fewer than 10,000, down from 50 million. They are departing on every available transport. And the system failures began when they started leaving? Queen Prime Vasic demanded. The correlation is exact, admitted Worker Prime Zekthos, who had traveled from the Krex shipyards. Every facility that loses its human staff experiences critical malfunctions within hours. Our own engineers cannot compensate for their absence. The great doors of the council chamber opened, and President Elena Vasquez entered alone. She wore a simple black dress appropriate for mourning, and moved with the quiet dignity that the galaxy had learned to fear. Over the past week's dot, the chamber fell silent as she walked to the human delegation's small section. Her footsteps echoed in the vast space. Other delegates watched her with nervous attention, uncertain what to expect from this woman whose species they had tried to prune. President Vasquez, Speaker Zethkar began, his musical voice careful and formal. We are pleased that you could attend this emergency session. The council faces certain technical difficulties. Elena interrupted quietly, settling into her chair. Is that what we're calling them? Queen Prime Vasask's red eyes blazed with anger. Your people are conducting acts of sabotage against council installations. This is an act of war against the galactic community. Elena looked at the Krex leader with perfect calm. Sabotage implies deliberate destruction. My people are simply coming home. If your equipment stops working when they leave, that says more about your dependence than their actions. Wordplay, rumbled Ambassador Krix. Your people are deliberately abandoning their posts during critical operations. Their posts, Elena repeated. Interesting choice of words, Ambassador. I wasn't aware that humans had been conscripted into galactic service. I thought we were partners and friends. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. The word friends carried weight now that everyone understood how the pruning protocol had been implemented. Elder Prime Kothfor spoke from his high seat, his voice carrying millennia of authority. The galaxy requires certain sacrifices for the greater good. Individual species must sometimes accept limitations for the benefit of galactic stability. Elena stood slowly, and something in her movement made the entire chamber tense. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the vast space without being raised. You attacked our home. The simple statement hit the chamber like a physical blow. No one moved. No one spoke. The words hung in the air with terrible clarity. Elena continued, her voice never rising above conversational levels, but somehow audible to every being present. Not by accident. Not through misunderstanding. You voted to implement the pruning protocol. You planned the attack on Earth. You decided that my people needed to be taught our place. Speaker Zethkar's crystal form dimmed. The council regrets the unfortunate. You killed 3 million humans, Elena interrupted. Including children. Including elderly. Including visitors from your own worlds who trusted human protection. She paused, looking directly at Captain Velthara of the Thylorians, who had attended the session via hologram. Do you remember the concert, Captain? Where your people and mine made music together. Where your children learned to compose individual songs. Elena's smile was cold as winter. One of those children was visiting Luna 7 when your Krex allies destroyed it. Her name was Kira Velsan. She was 8 years old. Captain Velthar's crystal form went completely dark. Several other Thylorians in the chamber began weeping diamond tears. Elena turned to Worker Prime Zekthos. And you, Worker Prime, remember when your hive ships broke down in the outer reach and human engineers worked 48 hours straight to fix them before your crews ran out of air? Chief Engineer Rodriguez was on Luna 7 too. He saved 3,000 Krex lives 2 years ago. Last week, your people killed him and his family. The Krex delegation remained silent, but their mandibles clicked with what Elena had learned was distress. You see, this is what you never understood about humans, Elena continued, beginning to pace slowly in front of the human delegation seats. You think in terms of species and empires and strategic interests. We think in terms of people. Individual people with names and faces and stories. She gestured toward the assembled delegates. For 50 years, we learned your names. We studied your cultures. We fixed your ships, healed your sick, and solved your problems. We thought you were our friends. Elena's voice grew harder. But you were never our friends. You were our employers, our supervisors, our masters, who tolerated us as long as we remained useful servants. Queen Prime Vasak attempted to regain control of the situation. The Krex Empire acted within legal parameters under the ancient protocols. The attack was justified under. The attack was murder, Elena said flatly. And now you're discovering what happens when you murder the people who keep your civilization running. She activated a portable display unit, showing a galaxy-wide map dotted with red indicators. 17 major Thalorian vessels dead in space. 43 Krex installations on emergency power. Beltaran mining operations shut down. Vorthek research stations evacuating due to life support failures. This destruction must cease, Elder Prime Kothver commanded. The ancient powers of this galaxy will not tolerate, Elena laughed, and the sound was more frightening than any shout of rage. The ancient powers? Is that what you call yourselves? She gestured at the red indicators covering the display. These are the ancient powers' great achievements. Crystal ships that can't function without human engineers. Hive minds that can't maintain their own technology. Mining operations that collapse when their human supervisors leave. Elena turned to address the entire chamber. You made yourselves dependent on us, then tried to eliminate us. You gave us access to all your secrets, then declared us enemies. You trusted us with your most critical systems, then voted to prune us like unwanted weeds. The chamber remained frozen in absolute silence. But the real mistake, Elena continued, was assuming that because we're emotional creatures, we would respond to your attack with mindless rage. That we would lash out blindly and give you justification for crushing us completely. She smiled again, and several delegates actually recoiled from that expression. We're not lashing out. We're simply leaving. All of us. Every human in Council space is coming home to Earth, and we're taking our knowledge with us. Admiral Chun's voice spoke from the display unit as Elena activated a communication link. Madam President, the recall is 93% complete. We estimate full evacuation within 72 hours. Thank you, Admiral, Elena replied. And the technical assessments? Complete. We have detailed analyses of every major Council installation, including vulnerabilities, dependencies, and failure points. Our people documented everything before they left. Elena looked around the chamber as the implications sank in. You see, we've been studying you for 50 years, learning how your technology works, understanding your weaknesses, mapping your critical infrastructure. She gestured at the frozen delegates. Did you think we were just fixing your ships without learning how they work? Healing your people without understanding their biology? Maintaining your stations without memorizing their blueprints? Elder Prime Kothver's ancient voice carried new uncertainty. What do you intend to do with this information? Elena's expression grew thoughtful. That depends entirely on you. If you're content to let us leave in peace, we'll go home to Earth and mourn our dead. We'll rebuild our colonies and find our own path among the stars. She paused, her next words carrying terrible finality. But if you follow us, if you attack Earth again, if you send fleets to finish what you started, Elena's smile disappeared completely. Then you'll discover exactly what humans do to people who hurt their families. The threat hung in the air like a toxic cloud.